Desire. It begins as a whisper inside the mind, a quiet voice that refuses to disappear. It speaks when the world is silent. It returns when logic tells you to forget it. And if you listen carefully, you will discover something extraordinary. Every empire, every fortune, every world-changing achievement was born from that same whisper. Long before the lights of industry illuminated cities, before steel towers touched the clouds, before fortunes were counted in billions, there was simply a human being sitting alone with a burning idea, a desire so powerful that it refused to surrender to doubt. The difference between the people who merely dream and the ones who reshape reality is not luck, not education, not even opportunity. The difference is the intensity of desire and the discipline of belief. The world you see around you today was not built by people who waited for permission. It was built by people who decided that their vision mattered more than the opinions of the crowd. When Thomas Edison sat in a small laboratory surrounded by failed experiments, the world laughed at his persistence. Thousands of attempts to create the electric light ended in disappointment. But Edison understood a principle most people never grasp. Failure is not defeat. Failure is information. Every attempt that didn't work was simply guiding him closer to the one that would. And behind every experiment was a burning desire so strong that no number of setbacks could extinguish it. That is where wealth begins. Not in banks. Not in markets. Wealth begins in the invisible territory of the mind. A desire becomes wealth only when it grows powerful enough to dominate your thoughts, influence your decisions, and shape your daily actions. Most people misunderstand desire. They believe wanting something is enough. They wish for success the same way a child wishes for a new toy. But desire in its true form is not casual. It is obsessive. It is relentless. It is the force that wakes you before sunrise and keeps your mind alive long after the world falls asleep. Andrew Carnegie once arrived in America as a poor immigrant with almost nothing to his name. But he carried something far more valuable than money. He carried a vision of industrial greatness. That vision burned so fiercely inside him that it drove him to learn faster, think bigger, and act bolder than anyone around him. Within a few decades, he built one of the greatest steel empires in history. The wealth came later. The power came later. But the desire came first. Always first. Because desire is the seed. Vision is the blueprint. And disciplined action is the construction of reality itself. Imagine for a moment that the mind is a fertile field. Every thought you plant grows roots beneath the surface. Weak thoughts produce weak results. Doubt produces hesitation. Fear produces paralysis. But when you plant a powerful desire and nurture it with belief, clarity, and persistence, something extraordinary begins to grow. A vision forms. And vision is not imagination in the childish sense. Vision is the ability to see something clearly in your mind long before it exists in the world. Walt Disney once stood before investors describing a magical place where families could escape into a world of imagination. At that time, there was no Disneyland, just empty land and a dream that seemed impossible. But Disney could see it as clearly as if it already existed. He could walk through the park in his mind. He could hear the laughter of children. He could see the castle rising against the sky. His vision was so vivid that eventually, the world had no choice but to follow his blueprint. This is the alchemy of success. Desire ignites the fire. Vision shapes the flame. And belief keeps it burning when the winds of doubt begin to blow. Most people abandon their dreams at the first sign of resistance. They interpret difficulty as a signal to stop. But the architects of greatness interpret resistance as confirmation that they are moving in the right direction. Henry Ford faced ridicule when he insisted that the automobile should be affordable for ordinary people. Experts claimed it was impossible. Bankers refused to support him. Competitors laughed at his ideas. But Ford possessed a quality that separates the builders from the spectators. He refused to surrender his vision to the limitations of others. When your desire becomes powerful enough, criticism loses its power. Doubt loses its voice. You begin to move with a quiet certainty that does not require approval. The mind becomes focused. Your energy becomes organized. Every action begins to align with a single purpose. And purpose is the invisible engine behind every meaningful achievement. Without purpose, effort becomes scattered. With purpose, effort becomes unstoppable. Consider Abraham Lincoln, a man who faced defeat after defeat throughout his early career. Elections lost, businesses failed, personal tragedies tested his spirit again and again. By ordinary standards, Lincoln should have abandoned his ambitions long before reaching the presidency. But something deeper drove him, a purpose larger than personal success, a vision of unity and justice that demanded his perseverance. The power of desire transforms when it connects with a purpose, greater than comfort or convenience. It becomes a mission, and a mission does not retreat at the first obstacle. It advances, even when progress feels slow, even when victory seems distant, even when the world doubts your direction. The transformation from desire to wealth is not magic. It is a process, a disciplined evolution of thought and action. First comes the burning desire, then comes the clarity of vision. But vision alone is not enough. Vision must be protected. The world is filled with distractions designed to weaken focus. Endless noise competing for your attention. Endless opinions attempting to redefine your goals. If you allow the crowd to influence your thinking, your vision will dissolve before it has the chance to grow. The successful individual guards their mind with intensity. They choose carefully what thoughts they entertain. They reject negativity like poison, because they understand that the mind is a workshop where reality is designed. If the blueprint becomes distorted, the final structure will collapse. Napoleon Hill once observed that every achievement begins as a definite purpose backed by a burning desire. But what he understood most deeply was that belief acts as the bridge between the invisible and the visible. When you believe in your vision with absolute certainty, your behavior begins to change. You walk differently. You speak differently. You take risks others are too afraid to attempt. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the world begins to respond to your new level of conviction. Opportunities appear where none seem to exist. People with similar ambitions are drawn into your orbit. Ideas begin to multiply. It is as if your belief tunes your mind to a frequency where possibilities become visible. This is not superstition. It is psychological alignment. When your mind is fully committed to a goal, it begins to notice resources, connections, and solutions that were previously invisible. But belief must be reinforced by discipline. Desire without discipline becomes frustration. Vision without discipline becomes fantasy. Discipline is the force that converts intention into consistent action. It is waking up when motivation is absent. It is continuing the work when progress is slow. It is choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. The world admires the finished masterpiece but rarely sees the years of disciplined effort behind it. Every successful individual has spent countless hours doing work that nobody applauded. Quiet mornings, late nights, endless adjustments, learning from mistakes, improving systems, strengthening skills. This is the unseen foundation of wealth and power. And yet, discipline alone cannot sustain the journey forever. There must also be gratitude, because gratitude transforms struggle into strength. When you learn to appreciate the opportunity to grow, every challenge becomes valuable. Every setback becomes a lesson. Gratitude keeps your mind open instead of bitter. It protects your vision from being poisoned by disappointment. The individual who practices gratitude walks through difficulty with a different energy. They do not complain about the road. They embrace the road, because they understand that every step is shaping their character. Adaptability also plays its role in this transformation. The path to success is never straight. Markets change. Circumstances evolve. Strategies that once worked may suddenly become obsolete. The rigid mind breaks under pressure, but the adaptable mind bends and continues forward. Charles Darwin once wrote that survival does not belong to the strongest species but to the one most capable of adapting to change. The same principle governs success in business, leadership, and personal growth. Your vision must remain constant, but your methods must remain flexible. When obstacles appear, the determined mind does not stop. It searches for a new path. When doors close, it builds new doors. And every time you adapt, Your confidence deepens because you begin to trust your own ability to navigate uncertainty. Resilience grows from this trust. True resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the refusal to surrender when struggle appears. The greatest stories of success are filled with moments when everything seemed lost. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Thomas Edison was told he was too stupid to learn anything. Oprah Winfrey was removed from television early in her career because producers believed she was unfit for television. History is filled with people who were underestimated by their era, but their resilience allowed them to outlast criticism and transform it into motivation. When your desire becomes a mission, resilience becomes your armor. You stop asking whether success is possible and start asking how it will be achieved. Your mind shifts from doubt to strategy, and strategy leads to learning. Because the pursuit of wealth and power demands constant evolution. Knowledge must expand. Skills must sharpen. Perspectives must deepen. The moment you believe you have learned enough, your growth begins to stagnate. But when you treat life as a classroom, every experience becomes a teacher. Books become mentors. Conversations become insights. Failures become instructions. The individual committed to learning never truly loses because every outcome improves their understanding of the game. And the game of success is played first in the mind. The mind decides what you deserve. The mind decides what risks you will take. The mind decides whether obstacles become excuses or stepping stones. If your mind is weak, your results will be weak. But if your mind is trained to think in terms of abundance, possibility, and disciplined effort, your results will reflect that strength. Eventually, something remarkable happens. Your desire evolves into certainty. Your vision evolves into reality. And the wealth you once imagined begins to materialize through the power of focused thought and relentless action. But the true reward is not merely financial success. The true reward is the transformation of the person who achieved it. Because in the process of building wealth, you build character. In the pursuit of power, you discover responsibility. And in the discipline of achieving your vision, you uncover the extraordinary potential that always existed within you. The whisper of desire that once lived quietly in your mind becomes a commanding voice guiding your destiny.